Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something really fundamental, a characteristic that, well, it truly underpins success and, importantly, well-being in some of the most demanding fields out there.
Mm,
And for you, our listeners in medicine, this is particularly vital. We're exploring the profound power of grit.
a fascinating topic.
Absolutely. Just think about the pressures you face daily, the relentless patient care, the constant need to learn, the high stakes. It's
It
immense.
really is an extraordinary environment.
So, passion and perseverance, they aren't just nice to haves, are they? They feel foundational for sustained excellence, for avoiding burnout, for really thriving.
They're absolutely crucial. Foundational is the right word.
And to guide us through this, I'm delighted to welcome Professor Mo Imam. Your ability to connect these complex ideas to the practical realities we all face is, well, truly exceptional.
Thank you. It's a real privilege to discuss this, especially thinking about the dedication inherent in medicine. Looking forward to unpacking it.
Unpacking the essence of grit beyond innate talent.
So, Professor, let's start by tackling a really common idea, one that's quite deep-rooted in society, I think.
Okay.
This notion that, exceptional achievement comes mainly from innate talent.
Hmm.
We love the idea of the natural genius, don't we?
We certainly do. It's a very appealing narrative, the effortless achiever.
Exactly. But is that the whole story? Or is there something else, maybe something more significant and perhaps even more attainable for most of us?
That's a brilliant place to begin because it challenges that core belief head on. We often assume remarkable people are just born, well, different. Gifted,
Hmm.
but grit. Grit is something else entirely. Formally, it's defined as passion and perseverance for very long-term goals.
Long-term being the key phrase there.
Absolutely. It's not about a short burst of hard work, not just a week or a month. It's about having this enduring fascination, this unwavering commitment to a meaningful goal over years, maybe even decades.
And sticking with it through setbacks.
Precisely. Through the challenges, the failures, the frustrations, that's the perseverance part.
It really shifts the focus away from just raw talent, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Could you maybe give us an example that highlights this difference? Something that shows talent alone isn't enough.
Yes, certainly. One of the most compelling examples comes from the West Point Military Academy in the U.S., specifically their notorious Beast Barracks.
Ah, yes, I've heard of that. Sounds intense.
Extremely. First, consider who gets in. Over 14,000 apply each year. Only about 1,200 are admitted.
Wow. So the absolute cream of the crop.
Exactly. Academically brilliant, often varsity athletes, team captains, exceptionally talented by any measure you care to use.
Right?
And yet, 1 in 5 cadets drops out before they graduate.
1 in 5, despite that selection process. That's surprising.
It is. And a significant number leave very early on during that first summer's Beast Barracks. It's a 7-week, incredibly demanding training program.
How demanding are we talking? What makes it the beast? And how does that compare perhaps to the intensity of early medical training?
Well, the West Point Handbook calls it the most physically and emotionally demanding part of your 4 years. Think 5 a.m. starts, relentless physical training, constant pressure, sleep deprivation.
Sounds grueling.
Hmm.
Similar pressures to, say, the first year of residency, perhaps. The intensity, the exhaustion.
Very much so. The aim is to push cadets beyond their limits constantly. They're tired, lonely, frustrated. Now, here's the fascinating part from the research.
Okay.
They looked at the cadets' whole candidate scores. That's West Point's own measure of talent combining academics, leadership, athletics.
Right, comprehensive score.
And they found it had absolutely no correlation with whether a cadet completed Beast Barracks or not. None whatsoever.
Really? So high talent didn't predict success in that environment.
Not at all. But what did predict completion, and was described as an astoundingly reliable predictor, was their score on a grit scale, their measured level of passion and perseverance.
That is extraordinary. So innate talent is just no guarantee of grit. It almost seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd think the talented ones would find it easier, have an advantage.
Logically, yes. They should stick around because things often come more easily to them initially. But often, they don't.
Why do you suppose that is? Does it resonate with what we see in medicine? Brilliant students who perhaps struggle later on.
It's a real paradox. My observation, and that of others studying high achievers, is that sometimes, well, sometimes early success comes too easily for the highly talented.
How so?
They might not develop the coping mechanisms, the sheer mental toughness needed when they finally hit a wall when something requires sustained, grinding effort. They haven't learned to embrace the struggle, perhaps?
That makes sense. They haven't built that effort muscle we might talk about later.
Precisely. In medicine, you see it sometimes. The student who breezes through exams might suddenly falter in residency when faced with clinical ambiguity, the physical grind of long shifts, or the emotional weight of difficult cases.
Situations where pure intellect isn't enough.
Exactly. That's where grit really shows itself.
It certainly challenges this whole narrative of the natural. And society seems to have this bias, doesn't it? We seem drawn to the idea of effortless brilliance over the person who's clearly worked incredibly hard.
There's definitely a bias. Research backs this up quite clearly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. And how might that bias play out in medicine? We talk about the gifted surgeon or the brilliant diagnostician. Does that subtly devalue the hardworking, diligent doctor?
Well, look at the studies by Chia Jung-se, a psychologist. She studied professional musicians. When you ask them directly, they say effortful training is far more important than talent.
That makes sense. They know the work involved.
Intellectually, yes. But then she presented them with identical musical recordings. The only difference was the fictional biography given for the performer. One was described as a natural, just inherently talented. The other, a striver, achieved excellence through sheer hard work and perseverance.
And the musicians preferred.
Overwhelmingly, they rated the natural as more likely to succeed and, crucially, more hireable, despite saying effort was more important.
Wow, that's a stark contradiction. So we say we value hard work, but subconsciously we're drawn to this idea of innate genius.
It seems so.
So how does that implicit bias affect a field like medicine? Does the diligent doctor get less recognition than the surgeon perceived as gifted?
It absolutely can. We might unconsciously undervalue the immense, consistent, often unseen effort that underpins true medical mastery.
Right. The hours in the lab, the endless studying.
Exactly, that gifted surgeon.
Yeah.
Their dexterity comes from thousands of hours of practice, anatomy study, repeating procedures. The brilliant diagnostician. Countless patient encounters, reading dense literature, learning from every single case, especially the mistakes.
The natural label hides all that grind.
It risks overshadowing it, yes, which can make it harder for those who demonstrate incredible grit, but perhaps less initial flash to get the recognition they deserve. It can also create this unhealthy pressure, suggesting brilliance should just happen.
Which can be discouraging for those finding it tough.
Precisely.
So why do we cling to this myth of natural talent? What's the appeal?
Well, the philosopher Nietzsche had a rather insightful take on this. He suggested, our vanity, our self-love, promotes the cult of the genius. Why? Because to call someone divine means, here, there is no need to compete.
Ah, so it lets us off the hook.
In a way, yes. If greatness is just this innate gift for a chosen few, then we don't have to measure ourselves against them. We don't feel obliged to put in that same level of, frankly, uncomfortable effort. It's a convenient excuse.
Makes us feel better about not trying quite so hard ourselves.
Perhaps. But the danger, the real risk, is that by focusing so much on talent, we risk leaving everything else in the shadows. We diminish the importance of other critical factors.
Especially grit.
Especially grit, the dedication, the resilience, the sheer staying power that truly drives long-term achievement, particularly in demanding professions like medicine.
The double impact of effort, the mundanity of excellence in practice.
That's a really powerful point. If talent isn't the be-all and end-all, then effort must be significantly more important than we often acknowledge. Some even suggest effort counts twice. Can you unpack that idea for us?
Yes, it's a simple but quite profound concept, highlighting the compounding power of effort. It comes down to two basic equations. First, talent multiplied by effort equals skill.
Right, talent affects how quickly you build skill with effort.
Exactly. Talent is the rate of skill improvement per unit of effort. More talent might mean faster skill development initially.
But that's only half the picture.
That's only half the picture. The second equation is where effort counts again. Skill multiplied by effort equals achievement.
So achievement isn't just having the skill, it's applying it.
Precisely. Achievement is what happens when you take your hard-won skills and use them, consistently, relentlessly. So sustained effort builds the skill in the first place, and then it multiplies the output of that skill over time.
So effort features in both building the skill and making it productive. It counts twice.
That's the idea. The same level of skill, applied with greater and more consistent effort, yields far more achievement.
That really shifts the perspective. It suggests someone may be less naturally gifted, but incredibly diligent, could ultimately achieve more.
Absolutely. Their sustained effort compensates and compounds over time.
Can you give us an example of this? Maybe from an unexpected field.
Well, Consider the novelist John Irving. Hugely acclaimed, right? The World, according to Garp, The Cider House Rules, bestsellers, Academy Award.
A giant of literature, definitely.
Yet he himself was very open about his early writing. He called it clumsy and melodramatic. He explicitly said he was not a natural writer.
Really? Unlike his character Garp, perhaps.
Exactly. What set Irving apart was his process. He was famous for rewriting. He'd spend far more time revising draft after draft, maybe 5 or 6 complete rewrites, than on the first draft itself.
Wow. That's dedication.
Immense dedication. He meticulously planned everything, then spent months, years, refining. He once said, "It doesn't hurt anybody to have to go slowly, to go over something again and again."
He saw slow, effortful work as necessary, maybe even beneficial.
He did. He felt his initial perceived lack of talent became an advantage because it forced him to develop stamina. He had confidence in his ability to just keep working at it, revising, improving. He embraced the grind.
That's fascinating. It connects really well with Dan Chambliss's idea of the mundanity of excellence from his study of swimmers. Can you elaborate on that? How does it link to medical expertise?
Chambliss's work is brilliant. He spent years with elite swimmers and found that dazzling human achievements are, in fact, the aggregate of countless individual elements, each of which is, in a sense, ordinary.
Ordinary, not mystical or magical.
Not at all. He argued that top performance is a confluence of dozens of small skills or activities, things learned or stumbled upon, drilled into habit, then combined. There's nothing extraordinary in any single component.
So it's the consistent execution of many small, mundane things.
Precisely. Things like having the money for coaching, yes, but crucially, thousands upon thousands of hours of painstaking practice, refining tiny details year after year. His point was, greatness is doable. It's an accretion of mundane acts.
We prefer the mystery of genius, though, don't we?
We often do. It's easier than confronting the reality of disciplined, repetitive, often boring work that truly builds excellence.
So applying this directly to our medical listeners, becoming a top surgeon or diagnostician isn't a single flash of brilliance. It's those thousands of hours of mundane, diligent work.
Absolutely. Think about a surgeon mastering a complex laparoscopic technique. It's not innate gifted hands.
No.
It's the thousands of hours in the anatomy lab, repeating dissections, countless hours in simulation labs, practicing movements until they're automatic, watching senior surgeons absorbing nuances, reviewing their own videos, spotting tiny errors, seeking constant feedback.
It's painstaking.
It is. And for the diagnostician, not born knowing every rare disease, it's countless patient histories, physical exams, hours reading dense literature, correlating subtle findings, learning from every case, especially the ones they got wrong initially.
Reviewing scans, labs, path reports.
Exactly. It's that daily grind, the repetitive analysis, the deep study, the observation. That's what builds the complex skill set that looks like effortless brilliance from the outside.
Which leads perfectly to learned industriousness. If excellence is built this way, how do we actually learn to embrace that kind of effort? Is industriousness itself a skill?
It absolutely is, according to the psychologist Robert Eisenberger. His concept of learned industriousness is fascinating.
Tell me more.
He did experiments, first with rats, then children. He found that the link between working hard and getting a reward, food, praise, satisfaction, can be learned and strengthened.
How does he show that?
Subjects who had to perform difficult tasks initially, say, press a lever many times for a reward, showed more vigor and endurance on new difficult tasks later on.
Compared to those who had easy tasks first.
Exactly. The ones who had it easy initially were much quicker to give up when things get tough later.
So you build a tolerance for effort, maybe even a preference for it.
That's the idea. You build an effort muscle. By pushing through difficulty, you reinforce the connection. Effort leads to reward.
How does that relate directly to medical training, which is notoriously long and tough?
Well, the whole journey, med school, residency, specialty training, is arguably a masterclass in learned industriousness.
All those long hours, the on-calls, the complex cases.
Every time a trainee pushes through fatigue, solves a complex problem, masters a difficult procedure, and sees a positive outcome, it strengthens that link. Effort equals progress.
So it's not just about learning facts and skills.
It's profoundly about shaping a mindset, building that resilience, that capacity to tolerate and even seek out the hard work needed for continuous improvement throughout an entire career. It becomes ingrained.
Growing grit from the inside out, the role of interest and deliberate practice.
This is incredibly insightful. So if grit can be learned, cultivated, how do we actually grow it from within? Where does it start, especially for, say, mid-career professionals maybe feeling a bit stuck or needing to reignite things?
That's a great question. When we look closely at gritty people, we see four key psychological assets: interest, practice, purpose, and hope. And they tend to develop, well, roughly in that order.
Okay, so it starts with interest.
Almost always. Now, many people have this idea that passion just strikes like lightning, an instant epiphany, this is my calling.
The Hollywood moment.
Exactly. But the reality for most grit paragons is much less dramatic. They usually spend years exploring different things. Their ultimate passion wasn't obvious right away.
So it's not about finding something fully formed, but more of a gradual discovery, an iterative process.
Precisely. My colleague Barry Schwartz, who's advised many young people, points out that unrealistic expectations often get in the way. People expect to find the perfect career interest instantly, like finding a soulmate.
That resonates.
He says, subtleties and exhilarations come with sticking with it for a while, getting elbowed deep into something. You have to engage first.
And the science supports this. Interests aren't found just by thinking.
No, the research is clear. Interests are not discovered through introspection. They're triggered by interactions with the outside world. It's often messy, serendipitous, and inefficient. You try things, something sparks, you follow it.
So you need that initial trigger, and
Then comes a much lengthier and increasingly proactive period of interest development. That initial spark needs to be re-triggered your attention again and again and again. You dig deeper, ask questions, explore related areas.
Can you give an example of this?
Look at the chef Mark Vetri. He admits he found academics boring, a C student. His interest in cooking was sparked by helping his Sicilian grandmother. Just a sensory experience, initially.
Not a career plan.
Not at all, but then he pursued it. Tried recreating dishes, worked in kitchens, actively sought out new techniques, dug deeper into the craft. It grew incrementally.
How does this apply to mid-career medical professionals? How do they keep that interest alive?
By actively seeking novelty within their field. Not just doing the routine, maybe diving deep into a subspecialty, taking on really challenging or unusual cases that force new learning, pursuing a specific research question that genuinely fascinates them.
Or mentoring, perhaps.
Right.
Finding new ways to teach.
Exactly. Consciously finding ways to re-engage, to keep learning, to deepen that expertise rather than just maintaining it. Keep triggering the interest.
Okay, so interest is the spark. What comes next? Just putting in hours.
Not just any hours, that's a critical point. The next component is practice, but specifically what Anders Ericsson called deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice. How is that different from just practicing?
It's fundamentally different from mere repetition or just spending time on task. Ericsson used a great analogy: jogging for health versus training for a marathon. Casual jogging is good, but a marathon runner training for speed needs specific goals, focused effort, tracking progress, getting precise feedback. Experts, he said, practice differently. They engage in deliberate practice.
So what defines deliberate practice? How would a doctor or a surgeon actually do it?
There are three core elements. First, setting stretch goals. You target one narrow weakness, something just beyond your current ability.
Like the Olympic swimmer Rowdy Gaines trying to beat his own split times.
Precisely. Or the violist Roberto Diaz focusing relentlessly on his Achilles heel in a difficult passage, working only on that specific weakness until it's mastered.
Okay. Stretch goals. What else?
Second, undivided attention and effort. Deliberate practice often requires solitude, intense focus. Think of Kevin Durant practicing shots alone for hours.
So for a surgeon, maybe hours in the sim lab on one specific technique. Or a researcher deep diving into complex data without distractions.
Exactly. Full concentration on the task at hand. And third, arguably the most crucial, experts hungrily seek feedback.
Hungrily. Even negative feedback.
Especially negative feedback. It needs to be immediate, specific, and often focused on what went wrong so you can identify the flaw and fix it. It's about objective improvement, not ego.
So for a physician, actively soliciting detailed critique on a case presentation, reviewing surgical outcomes with a critical eye, tracking diagnostic accuracy.
All of those. Actively processing that feedback is vital for rapid skill improvement.
It sounds incredibly demanding, even, well, unpleasant. Is deliberate practice enjoyable at all? Constantly focusing on weaknesses doesn't sound like fun.
It's a very astute question. It rarely feels like fun in the moment. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the flow psychologist, acknowledged it can be boring and unpleasant.
Right.
But he added, it is not bitter when you feel that it is worth having, that you can master it. There's a deeper satisfaction.
Like Rowdy Gaines hating practice but loving the results.
Exactly. He hated the repetitive act, but had an overall passion for swimming, for the outcome, the fitness, the winning. It's passion for the goal, not necessarily the immediate process.
Interesting. And you mentioned gritty people find it both more enjoyable and more effortful.
Yes, studies suggest that. Either they learn to love the burn, the discomfort of growth, or they simply relish the challenge itself more than others do.
But it's not flow, that effortless state.
No, it's distinct. As one spelling champion put it, flow happens when you're not being challenged. Deliberate practice is gratifying because of the incremental improvement, the feeling of getting better through disciplined effort, not because it's effortless.
So for medical professionals, it's about that focused, maybe uncomfortable push. Actively choosing the tough cases, seeking honest critique, meticulously reviewing outcomes to find areas for improvement.
Precisely that, not just going through the motions. It's choosing the challenging path within your daily work. Reviewing that complex journal article again, practicing that tricky suture one more time in the sim lab, discussing that diagnostic puzzle with colleagues until you understand every nuance.
It's the intentional targeting of weaknesses.
That's the heart of it. That's how expertise is built and maintained at the highest level. It's relentless self-improvement, driven by that initial interest.
The pillars of purpose and hope in professional life.
Okay, so we have interest driving the initial engagement and deliberate practice building the skill. But what sustains this over the long haul, especially in medicine with its decades-long careers and intense demands? What keeps people going?
This brings us to the other two crucial pillars, purpose and hope.
Purpose. How does that differ from just having a goal?
For gritty individuals, purpose is much deeper than just ambition. It's the conviction that their efforts pay dividends to other people. It connects their work to the well-being of others.
So it's outwardly focused, altruistic.
Often, yes. It aligns with Aristotle's idea of eudaimonic happiness, flourishing through serving others and living authentically, as opposed to hedonic happiness, which is more about self-focused pleasure. Gritty pursuits, especially in medicine, are almost always eudaimonic.
That makes sense. How does this sense of purpose show up in how people view their actual work?
Amy Wrzesniewski's research at Yale is fascinating here. She found people see their work as either a job, a career, or a calling.
Okay, define those.
A job is mainly a necessity for the paycheck. A career is a path for advancement, status. But a calling is seen as inherently fulfilling, one of the most important parts of life, and fundamentally about making the world better in some way.
And those with a calling are grittier.
Significantly so. More satisfied, miss fewer work days. She studied zookeepers, for example, often modest pay, but many see it as a profound calling to care for animals.
And this calling isn't tied to the specific job title.
Not at all. That's the crucial finding. Any role cleaner, CEO, doctor can be viewed as a job, career, or calling. You can shift your perspective without changing your actual job.
Like the bricklayer metaphor, seeing yourself not just laying bricks, but building a cathedral.
Exactly. It's about the meaning you ascribe to the work. And Wrzesniewski stresses, a calling is not some fully formed thing that you find. It's much more dynamic. It evolves.
That's quite liberating. You can cultivate that sense of calling within your current role. Where does this deeper purpose come from?
Well, according to Bill Damon, who studies purpose, it often starts with that initial spark of interest we talked about.
Right.
Then often observing a purposeful role model, seeing someone else making a difference. And finally, the critical internal revelation. I personally can make a difference. The intention to act.
So interest, role models, and then personal agency.
Yes. Think of Kat Cole, former president of Cinnabon. Influenced by her mother's work ethic and generosity, she realized her thing was helping people reach their potential, first individuals, then teams, companies, communities. Her purpose evolved and deepened.
And your own purpose, you mentioned.
For me, after exploration, it crystallized as use psychological science to help kids thrive. That overarching goal anchors the long-term effort, providing motivation through the inevitable difficulties.
That's powerful. Now, what about the final piece, hope? How does hope fit in, especially when things go wrong?
Grit-related hope isn't passive wishing. It's not, I hope tomorrow's better. It's the expectation that our own efforts can improve our future.
So it's active, agentic.
Exactly. It's the difference between hoping and resolving. I resolve to make tomorrow better. It has nothing to do with luck. It's about getting back up after a fall.
Like the opposite of learned helplessness.
Precisely. Marty Seligman and Steve Mayer's work showed that suffering without control leads to passivity, even depression. When people feel their actions don't matter, they stop trying.
But gritty hope refuses that.
Yes, it's what Seligman later called learned optimism. Resilient people tend to see setbacks as temporary and specific, not permanent and pervasive flaws in themselves or the world.
They believe challenges are fixable.
Fundamentally, yes. They focus on what they can control, what they can change through their own efforts. This belief motivates them to keep trying.
You had a personal experience with this.
I did. I failed neurobiology as an undergrad. Twice, actually.
Wow, that must have been tough.
Devastating. I considered dropping the major, but instead I resolved to stay, telling myself, I won't quit. I can figure this out. I sought help, changed my approach, and eventually aced the final. Got a B. Still my proudest grade.
That really illustrates choosing persistence over despair. It sounds very much like Carol Dweck's growth mindset.
Absolutely. Dweck's work is central here. The growth mindset is the belief that abilities aren't fixed, but can be developed through dedication, hard work, learning.
Versus a fixed mindset where talent is innate, unchangeable.
Right. A fixed mindset sees failure as proof of limitation. A growth mindset sees it as an opportunity to learn and improve. That's why praising effort, you're a learner, is more effective than praising innate talent, you're a natural. It fosters resilience.
And asking for help is part of this too. It's not about rugged individualism.
Crucially important. Asking for a helping hand is a sign of strength, not weakness. The mathematician Rhonda Hughes, who faced incredible rejection before succeeding, said setbacks didn't discourage her for long. She got back up, often by seeking support and advice.
This connection between purpose and hope feels so vital for medicine. The commitment to patience despite the grind, the belief in improvement despite setbacks.
Indeed, the purpose of healing provides that powerful why. And the hope, the belief that effort, learning, collaboration will lead to better outcomes, provides the resilience to keep going. It frames the struggle as meaningful.
It transforms the burden into a calling sustained by optimism.
Beautifully put, yes.
Cultivating grit from the outside in, the influence of culture and environment.
We've covered growing grit from the inside: interest, practice, purpose, hope. Now, Professor, what about the outside? How do our environment, the culture around us, shape our grit? This feels key for medical institutions.
It's hugely influential. Our surroundings play a massive role. There's even a practical framework some families use called the hard thing rule.
The hard thing rule. Tell me more.
It's quite simple, really. 3 parts. 1, everyone in the family, parents included, must do a hard thing, something challenging.
Shared commitment, okay.
2, it must require daily deliberate practice, not just casual effort.
Consistency. Got it.
And 3, you can quit, but not midstream. You have to finish the predetermined period, a season, a school year, and you must choose a new hard thing before quitting the old one.
So no quitting just because it gets tough.
Yeah.
You see it through, then pivot if needed.
Exactly. It builds discipline and follow-through. My own daughter, Lucy, went through several hard things. Ballet, track, piano each for a year or more before finding viola, which really stuck.
It provides structure for exploring challenges and building resilience.
Precisely. And beyond the family, extracurricular activities are vital playing fields for grit, especially for young people.
Why are they so effective?
Research shows kids in sustained extracurriculars feel both challenged and engaged, having fun. That's a potent mix often missing elsewhere. Think of Warren Williams' grit at Harvard admissions.
Right, you mentioned that. Follow-through in activities was key.
Yes, sticking with something for 2 or more years, showing advancement that predicted college success better than standardized test scores, which makes the decline in participation among less privileged students really concerning. It's widening the grit gap.
A real equity issue.
Yeah.
So it's not just individual choice, but opportunity and environment.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to organizational culture. How does this apply to hospitals, research labs? Can culture instill grit?
Absolutely. This is where the co-responsive principle from psychologist Brent Roberts comes in. It suggests we gravitate towards environments that enhance our existing traits, creating a reinforcing loop.
So gritty people seek gritty environments, which makes them even grittier.
Essentially, yes. And Dan Chambliss saw this powerfully with his swimmers. He said, when you go to a place where basically everybody you know is getting up at 4 in the morning to go to practice, that's just what you do. It becomes a habit.
The culture normalizes the hard work.
It does. The shared norms, values, behaviors become internalized. They shape your identity.
So if you're surrounded by gritty people in a gritty culture, you become grittier almost by osmosis.
Chambliss put it starkly. There's a hard way to get grit and an easy way. The hard way is to do it by yourself. The easy way is to use conformity, because if you're around a lot of people who are gritty, you're going to act grittier.
That's a powerful insight for leaders. It's easier to build grit collectively.
Much easier. Over time, the way we do things around here and why eventually becomes the way I do things and why. Culture shapes character.
Can you give some examples of leaders who've intentionally built gritty cultures? How might that translate to medicine?
Certainly. Look at Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks. He explicitly sought great competitors, people with grit, resilience. Their whole culture was about unleashing passion and helping people be great competitors.
How did he foster that?
Relentless communication, clear language, always compete, no synonyms for values. Even his advice on non-football problems focused on coaching, planning, specific actions, a developmental, grit-focused approach.
Interesting. Anyone else?
Anson Dorrance, the UNC women's soccer coach with incredible success. He says it's not about recruiting talent, but what we do once the players get here. He uses the grit scale, demands communication, has core values memorized. Grit is explicit, measured, discussed.
Making it tangible.
Yes. Or General Caslin at West Point, shifting from an attrition model, weeding out the weak, to a developmental model. High standards, yes, but with respect and support to help cadets develop strength. Dropout rates plummeted, and they produced better leaders.
That's a huge shift from culling to cultivating.
Exactly. And even in business, Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase promotes fortitude through constant communication and leading by example. He expects and cultivates resilience.
These leaders actively shape the environment to foster perseverance. It really drives home how crucial leadership and a supportive yet demanding culture are. So for medical institutions, it's not just hiring gritty individuals, is it? It's about building the environment for grit.
Absolutely. It's about creating a culture where continuous learning is the norm, where seeking and giving honest feedback is safe and expected, where persevering through tough cases or research setbacks is supported and celebrated.
Building a collective identity around excellence and resilience.
Precisely. Leaders need to set high standards, but also provide the mentorship, resources, and psychological safety for people to push boundaries, learn from mistakes, and keep striving. When the institution embodies grit, it becomes part of everyone's professional DNA.
It shifts from an individual struggle to a shared strength.
That's the goal, cultivating grit from the outside in. Outro.
Professor Mo Imam, this has been truly illuminating. A really deep dive into grit. We've seen it's so much more than talent. It's that blend of passion and sustained perseverance. We've explored how effort really does count twice, building skill and driving achievement. And crucially, that grit isn't fixed. It can be grown from the inside out through interest, deliberate practice, purpose, hope.
And from the outside in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Through supportive, high-standard environments and culture.
Indeed. You know, thinking back, my father used to tell me, rather bluntly, "You're no genius."
Oh, dear.
And you know what? He was probably right if genius means effortless brilliance from birth. But I've come to think about genius differently.
How so?
Maybe genius is really about working toward excellence ceaselessly with every element of your being. In demanding fields like medicine, perhaps true greatness isn't the innate gift, but that relentless dedication to improvement, to service, to believing you can make a difference.
The constant pursuit, the getting back up.
The unwavering commitment. That, I think, is profoundly empowering.
A wonderful thought to end on. What does greatness truly mean for you in your professional lives? Is it the gift or the dedication? If this deep dive resonated, please do consider rating and sharing it with colleagues. Your insights really help us reach more professionals. Professor, thank you again.
My pleasure entirely.
Until next time, keep digging deep, keep striving, and keep living with grit.